The Toronto Blue Jays have made multiple moves, including making a sneaky signing by signing a former top prospect. We're going to break down exactly what that signing is, as well as discuss the other moves they made, as today the September call-ups were officially called up. So we're going to break all that down in this episode of Jays Digest, as well as discuss seeing one of the best defensive plays ever by Leo Jimenez that happened in today's game. So I don't want to stay tuned for all that in this episode, but before we do, if you're a part of the percentage that aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It would mean the world to Peter and myself as we're on the road to 14,000 subscribers. But let's just dive right into it. Today was a very interesting day as a Blue Jays fan. Obviously, yesterday, the Jays put up tons of runs. They destroyed the Twins, quite frankly. And then the lineup today was basically a bunch of prospects and Buffalo boys, and it was a very interesting lineup. And coming into the game, again, we're not competing for a playoff spot at this point, so it's going to be a very interesting one. But they competed, and they almost beat a Minnesota Twins team that is really fighting for a wild card spot. So it's a very interesting game. But prior to the game, there was a lot of moves that went down as they made multiple roster moves. They made a very interesting signing. And of course, we also saw one of the better plays I've ever seen by a defender in Leo Jimenez. But let's just start with the move. So roster moves a couple hours ago. This one happened during the game. And we have some other moves to go over as well. The prospects that they called up for September call-ups have officially been announced. But we'll start with this one. So they've claimed Dylan Tate off of waivers from the Orioles and optioned him at AAA. And they DFA'd Paolo Espino, who he's 38 or 39, has been in the organization for a while. But if you're unfamiliar with Dylan Tate, if you've been watching Jays for a while, you probably have heard this name before because he played and was in the Orioles bullpen for a very long time, had a brief stint where he started for them. And quite frankly, this could be very interesting for the Jays. And again, at this point, it's not really for this year. They obviously need guys in AAA to throw innings. They need guys at the major league level to, take up a lot of the bulk innings, as injuries in the bullpen have been, a ton of them this season, as well as they traded half their guys at the deadline. But we saw signings like Tommy Nance, where we thought at the moment, hey, this is probably not going to mean much for the Jays. And now he's going out and throwing a lot of actual meaningful innings for the Blue Jays, as meaningful as you can get in a non-playoff race. But he's a former top prospect at a starter. He is now 30 years old and working as a reliever. Another pitcher for them to potentially take a look at down the stretch. Now, again, at this point, like we've been discussing the whole time on these videos for the past week or two, and really since they fell out of their competitive window this season at least, most of these signings are auditioning for next year. And if Dylan Tate ends up coming to the Jays, he has a really impressive few outings for the Jays for the last month of the season in September. He could factor himself into a bullpen spot next season. And we know how volatile bullpens can be. I mean, we saw this season, the Jays were supposed to have one of the best bullpens in baseball coming into the year. You think about Jordan Romano, you think about Jimmy Garcia, you think about all these guys, even Eric Swanson, who's had a very rough year, an up and down year, starting to find it a little bit now. But the Jays bullpen was supposed to be a major strength for them. And ultimately, it turned into their biggest weakness alongside the offense. So if you just bring in more and more guys, you get more and more looks. There's a world where Dylan Tate comes out, he pitches great this season, and he plays himself into a very prominent role next year on the Toronto Blue Jays. It is a very possible thing to happen, and it's not something that's out of the realm of possibility. And we know the working and the best equation for a bullpen is to just have a lot of guys in competing for a spot, basically, because we know how volatile it can be. And this was a perfect display of that this season for the Toronto Blue Jays, because it literally went from being one of the best in baseball last year and really promising great to the worst, or one of the worst in baseball. So it's very interesting on that front there with Dylan Tate. And we'll get into his stats here a little bit as well. This season, he's pitched a handful of games, almost 30 games for the Baltimore Orioles, who are, of course, fighting for that division with the Yankees. And he put up a 4.59 ERA, but you look at, he didn't play last season, but you look at 2022, his last full year, 67 games, a 3.05 ERA in 73 innings. So this guy has performed at the major league level before. He's been a very, very good, hasn't been dominant, but he's been a very, very good reliever at the MLB level. We saw back in 2022, he even got a few saves there. Like, he's a very interesting and intriguing prospect, and is not prospect at this point, intriguing pitcher, because he's 30 years old. He's not a prospect, but it's very rare that you find guys that have been pretty good to dominant at the MLB level in the bullpen thrown on waivers. Now, obviously, the Baltimore Orioles are a very competitive team. They need these roster spots, so they put him on waivers, and he hasn't been performing great this year. They have other bullpen guys who can slide in. They haven't been afraid to get rid of guys like that in the past, but it's very intriguing for the Blue Jays, and I can almost guarantee you that they're going to give this guy, Dylan Tate, a look at the MLB level. You can see this from Thomas Hall. There was a time where Dylan Tate's sinker was among the best pitches in baseball. He has 2 minor league options left. He's certainly worth a look, and he points out his baseball savant page from 2022, and a lot of red, a lot of really elite peripherals, and that was back in his last full season just a couple years ago. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this one. Obviously, again, at this point, they're not signing guys to make a push for the playoffs or anything. It's more so auditioning, and he is 30, so it's not like he's going to get significantly better. But if he can get back to that 2022 form where he had one of the best sinkers in baseball, because we all remember him coming out of the bullpen from the Orioles against the Blue Jays back in 2022 and being dominant. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Jays decide to do going forward with Dylan Tate. But there's no doubt in my mind we're going to see him sometime soon. But looking at some of the other moves that were made, we didn't know if Jake Bloss was going to get called up today. We didn't know what direction exactly they were going to go with. So far, they decided to recall Luis De Los Santos and Brandon Eisert from AAA as a part of September roster expansion rules. So nothing too exciting. I mean, neither of these guys, De Los Santos we saw earlier in the year, he's a decent player. Not a huge amount of everyday MLB player upside, but there is a chance that he, is going to continue to fight for a spot. And then Eisert was dominant in AAA this season and has really been good. He had a 1.59 ERA over 11 innings in August. Crossfire delivery with extension and low release point creates deception. Helps low 90s below playoff. So nothing too exciting. I know a lot of Jays fans out there were hoping for a guy like Jake Bloss to come up, even some of the other prospects. But when you think about it, they don't have any crazy prospects. I mean, coming into the year and even a few months ago before the Ricky Tiedemann injury, this would have been a time for Ricky Tiedemann to come up. But he's obviously out with Tommy John surgery till 2026. You look at guys like Brandon Barriera, one of their first-round picks from a couple of years ago. He's also out with injury. Jake Bloss is the guy who's probably going to come up next. We'll probably have a video on that tomorrow. He's probably going to be coming up very soon, but they're not going to bring him up after having a very, very rough outing last time where he gave up 9 runs in 1 2/3 innings. So the Jake Bloss move is coming, I would assume, but it's not happening yet. But in the meantime, they're going to get looks at guys like De Los Santos who played today and some of their other players as well, like Brandon Eisert, just to give them some chances. But when you look at a lot of their top prospects, I mean, Aurelvis Martinez also, he will probably get a chance to play for the Jays once the suspension is up towards the end of the month. But it's going to be very interesting to see. Let me know what your thoughts are on these moves. Not too exciting, nothing crazy, because we don't have any top prospects right now that have yet to debut, that are really available to debut already, besides Jake Bloss, who obviously debuted for the Astros earlier on in the season for them before he got traded to the Jays. Let me know what your thoughts are on that. But now let's move into quickly the game today. Obviously, a very interesting game. Ernie Clement's been playing very well, and the Jays had a very rough lineup out there, so you didn't expect much. They were up 3-1 heading into the bottom of the 8th, and Chad Green gave up a 3-run home run to Royce Lewis, and that was the game. But in between that, we saw one of the better defensive plays, and ignore the filters, it's for copyright reasons, but it was a pop-up into the first base side, and you just see Leo Jimenez make arguably the best play of the season, one of the best plays I've ever seen. And they ended up getting the double play at home, even though it was, I believe, taken back because it was a dead ball once he's in the stand. But it was an unbelievable catch, running full speed, and it's very rare you see a player catch it and just get smoked by the rails there. But one of the best plays I've ever seen, and something that we have. Everyone was blowing up about it, and you love to see that from Leo Jimenez, who might factor himself into a bench role next season for the Jays if they're trying to win. Obviously, Bichette is hoping to return as well this season, but Leo Jimenez's defense has always been elite. It is very good. His hitting skills still need a little bit of work, but it was great to see that out of Leo Jimenez, and quite frankly, one of the better plays we've seen ever. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of this. A very interesting time to be a Jays fan, of course. A lot of moves are going down, but unfortunately for the Jays right now, they're not competing for a playoff spot. So we just got to take what we can get with the prospects, see them develop, and hopefully watch the Jays prospects continue to play well. But that'll wrap it up. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. See you tomorrow.